Assalamu alaikum. Welcome. Okay, we're going to just go ahead and jump right in. We're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, and then we are going to jump into our topic for tonight.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Sarah. Why don't you go ahead and get us started? Go
Okay.
ahead and introduce yourself. What is it that you do? And um, tell us a little bit about who you help.
So once again, Assalamu alaikum, ladies. So honored to have you guys here tonight joining us. I am Sara Qureshi. I'm a certified trauma-informed parent coach, and I am going to explain a little bit of what parent coaching is because I met someone a couple of weeks ago for coffee and we had this wonderful conversation. I introduced myself earlier on, and at the end of our meetup, she was like, "So, what is a parent coach again?" So I was like, "You know what? Let me go into a bit of explanation." So basically, the way I explain it is that just like people hire a personal trainer for their fitness goals, people hire a parent coach for their parenting goals, for the vision that they have in terms of what kind of a Muslim mother or Muslim parent they want to be. And I specifically work with Muslim moms in the West who are struggling with overwhelm, with exhaustion, with anxiety to kind of handle that and figure out how to go about things. I also have a background in counseling and social work. That's kind of where I come from. And I've got four little kids, 8 and under. So that's a little bit about me. And I live in Dallas, just like Meimuna. So Meimuna, tell us a little bit about yourself now.
I'm Meimuna. I am a parent to four children. I'm also been married for 20 plus years. I tell people a little bit about my personal background because it's relevant to the work that we do. I'm a relationship coach. Sometimes I call myself a relationship coach and a habit coach because I focus specifically on relational habits. And a little bit about what I do. I think at the core of it, people want to be able to have long-term relationships but maintain their authenticity. And we're not the same as when we're in our 20s and in our 30s and our 40s. Our needs change, everything changes. And so we have to have this skill of being able to pivot and also be very, very authentic, not apologize and not have to hold on to an old version of ourselves in our marriage. So the core of what I teach is being able to change in a way that's authentic, but also hold on to your long-term relationships. So that's it in a very short nutshell.
Yes,
I
yes.
want to go ahead and jump into this topic, this idea of two different types of parents, two different types of styles, two different personalities that clash. So if we find ourselves in this kind of, I guess, issue, Sarah, from your perspective, what are some things that people can do to navigate the situation?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the context. So generally speaking, the kind of clients that I work with are I work with all Muslim moms, and they're usually in the parenting world. They're doing the research. They're the ones who are like listening to the podcast and really growing quite a lot in terms of their self-development. Because when you're developing as a mother, you're also developing as a person.
Right.
Um, and then there comes a point where they feel like their husbands and them, there's like a huge discrepancy between their growth. And then there is also a huge discrepancy between their understanding of what kind of a parent they want to be. So when the kids are younger, this is not so much of an issue because it's a lot more caretaking kind of an exercise. But when the kids get a little bit older, and now you're talking about the tarbiyah of the children and what kind of values you want to instill and what kind of values you want to see and what kind of family culture you want to see in your home, and the methodology to go about it.
Mhm.
You might want the same things. You might want kids on the deen and you might want kids to like be praying and stuff. And you both might agree with the outcome of that, but how you might want to come across that is very different because of the way that you were raised and because of both of the way, your families were. And so I would say that the biggest thing with that is that finding some sort of a reconnection and finding a space and place where you can actually talk about parenting. But before you even talk about parenting, because parenting can be a little bit of a sticky subject, just reconnecting. Because a lot of the moms that I'm talking to, they're so busy with their children,
Yeah.
they're completely disconnected with their husbands. And so what I would say is not something you would expect from a parent coach, but what I would say is reconnect on your marriage level, reconnect on like just becoming friends again and just kind of asking him how what's going on with him and what's he reading about. And he might want to talk about politics and sports or whatever it is that he's interested in. And once you've kind of broken that ice a little bit, just say, hey, I've been reading up on something and this is the research on this. And I would really think that, with our 8-year-old or with our 10-year-old, this might really work well, because we're seeing some behaviors and just kind of bringing him into that circle, like inviting him in rather than saying, I'm doing this and I don't care what you think or not. So like kind of bringing him in and breaking it more of a team effort, I think would be really critical. But I'd love to hear your thoughts
Yeah,
from a
I
marriage
100%.
perspective.
When you and I were talking before, you were talking about like dating your husband and
Yeah.
like having space for that, right? And I think that that's brilliant. Like in a sense, like you were saying, um, when we go on dates and stuff, we kind of want to leave the parent behind. We want to explore our own, us as women, us as a couple, and that's really important. But also just, having days where you kind of go on serious dates, on review dates, that kind of thing was really interesting. Overall, like I'm going to zoom way out in terms of how I would talk about this. When I have clients, a lot of times what they present with is a problem like this, right? They're like, hey, we have different parenting styles. It's causing arguments. It's causing fights. Like, and they expect some kind of referee. You're right, you're wrong, or some kind of neutral, find a way to balance and meet in the middle kind of thing. And that's not really how I see relationships at all. What I'm kind of trying to do myself in terms of like to figure out what's going on, what's really going on, is I start looking at relationships from a lens from three different layers, right? And if you can start looking at your relationship, you will not be able to unsee this. You will not be able to unsee this. So the first layer is that story, whatever is happening. This thing is happening between us. We are fighting about, I'll give you an example. Somebody was telling me the other day, like her 5-year-old, when he is with her, he's totally fine. She can discipline, there's no meltdowns. But when the dad comes in to the picture, just his presence changes the way that the 5-year-old is reacting
Mhm.
to the situation. There's more meltdowns or whatever. And so that's the story. That's the top layer. Underneath it is a dynamic that three of you have, or the five of you have, or the two of you have as parents, right? As a couple. And a dynamic, the way that I describe this to people is kind of the way Esther Perel does it. And she's like, it's the push and pull. It's the dance between two people. It's the, I am this way because you're that way, and you're that way reacting, and it's a cycle, right? The more you do X, the more I do Y. So the more you chase, the more I run. The more you avoid, the more I like get on top of you. The more whatever, the less. Like you want to figure out what that dance is, the dynamic. And then underneath that are these specific relationship habits that are not tangible that set up the dynamic. So is somebody defensive? You don't just want to know the triggers, you want to know the responses to the triggers, because you could copy and paste the fight, honestly, but that dance and that dynamic and those set of habits are going to be the same. So that's kind of what I'm doing initially to assess like what is happening. Zoom way out. Just observe for a little bit. Be a neutral party and what is happening in here, because sometimes we're just in the weeds, and our mother buttons are like bright red, like our mothering smothering buttons. So we just zoom out a little bit, be the fly on the wall to your own situation, and kind of just see what's happening and look at things from different layers, different angles. That's kind of the complicated answer. The simpler answer, like a very kind of practical tip, I would say, is that when something goes wrong, a lot of times what we do is we don't have time, we don't have the energy, we don't have the whatever to deal with what's going on in the moment, right? Like he yells at the kids and you didn't like the way he or whatever. Don't just shove it under the rug. Don't just let it go. I always tell my clients, fight on purpose. Don't be afraid of conflict. Fight on purpose. Don't fight reactively. Do it on purpose. Bring up the conflict. It's not something to be that scared of, right? And learn how to fight. It's not that you fight, it's how you fight. That's really important. So learn those skills of how to fight. And so bring it up and say, hey, let's review what happened. What can we do better next time? That's it. Like if you have a one-liner, that would be it. Yeah. So that's my
I
two
think that's
cents.
really, really good. I think so. I picked up two things from that. I'm going to leave your complicated answer to the side because as much as I love that, I feel like for in the interest
Practical,
of
yeah,
time and in how far we can go in today's conversation, I think that. But what I picked up is one, like when something happens, rather than reacting immediately, take
yeah,
a back seat and
yeah,
just observe and just give
yeah,
yourself that time and space just to reflect. And I'm
right.
going to bring in the Islamic principle here of tadabbur, which is
Mm,
as you're doing that, just even reminding yourself that when you're not reacting immediately and you're just taking a seat back, that's actually a form of ibadah because it is so difficult to do that.
yeah, yeah,
It's easier said than done.
100%.
So that's the first thing. And the second thing you said was fight on purpose. So build skills of actually how to have a conflict.
Yes,
What you're
yes,
saying. So
100%.
that's
Which
like
is like a weird thing to say as a
right.
relationship coach, right? It's not, the research shows us 69% of marriages basically have perpetual issues that you will never necessarily meet in the middle at. You're going to consistently have conflict around, and you can have marriages that are good you don't always have to agree on everything.
That's
You
like
can learn
70%. That's almost 70%.
70%. Yeah, 70% of long-term healthy marriages have perpetual issues. So if you're like, it's just me, no, I promise you it's not. And you don't have to get along about everything. Like learn how to live with conflict, learn how to live with difference. And you learn how to fight. That's essentially the skill. It's not that you fight, it's how you fight. Yeah.
Okay. I know everyone's on not having their cameras on, which is perfectly fine. It's late at night,
Yeah.
and we just really appreciate everyone who's come on. If this is beneficial for you, if you're liking something that anyone's made a point, if you can use the emoticons and just use your heart or just put it in the question so that we just know that
Yes,
you're
that would be
resonating, that you're listening, or if we should just go on a topic for a little bit longer. I would Jazakallah khair, Soumya. Thank you, Kendria. I would love to know a little bit more about what you think those maybe the first skill for maybe a couple who is not, maybe they're always fighting about the same parenting issue. And let's take an example. Like, I don't know what the ages of the children here are, but let's take an example of a 10-year-old. And I think every household, regardless of the age, have a digital screen
Mhm.
problem. And that's a battle in every household. So let's say that the father believes that it's okay for the child to be on the screens a little bit longer. Like they're a little bit lax on the boundaries. They don't really think it's a big deal. They themselves are on the phone all the time. So they're like, well, why should I be saying anything? Because, it's perfectly okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mom, on the other hand, has done her research. She knows the statistics on brain rot and all those things, and she's a little bit more stricter.
Yeah.
And no matter how much they try, they're always having a conflict on those issues. So how should the wife, the mom, approach something like that if this is always an issue that they're always arguing about? Like, is that something that you can help with?
Yeah, I mean, I think every house is different, and I can speak from experience. With my boys, I was way stricter on the screens. They're older. I have a 21, 19, but when they were little, I was very, very limited on the screens. With my girls, I got exhausted from fighting, and I let go. And as they're growing, I'm really regretting that decision. But I did let go, and there was a balance or a necessary let go because it was creating way more anger and resentment in me than what it was worth. And so I feel like the answer for each person, depending on where you are on your, journey, what's the answer is completely different. And so
Mhm.
this is why I'm saying zoom out, check out the dynamic, check out like what else is going on besides like that particular thing you cannot agree on. I do definitely think that you need to figure out what your red lines are. Not everything can be a red line. What are your absolute red lines? What are your absolute boundaries? And that is a process. It's not just something you state because you should, because that's what's ideal, and figure out what those are. And you come at the table as like, if he has a red line, you have a red line. You have to figure out how to meet each other's red lines. But the caveat is you can't have 50 red lines. So choose your battles carefully and, and put energy into that thing. And I think the screen is worth putting energy into, honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe not like to the level that you want it, but the limitations of it, getting it, away, 100% worth it.
Yeah.
I look back and that's something I genuinely still like kind of regret. I wish I did that better with my girls.
Yeah, yeah. And we're
Yeah.
always learning, right? Like we're always
Yeah.
constantly learning. That's the whole point of
Yeah.
being in a space where we're talking about self-development and self-growth and
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that that's what happens. Like when you have a responsible, like a parent that takes on a lot, they're on one level, they're like handling the junk food front and the front of the junk screens. And then as a Muslim, you're already going against the grain of society. So there are so many battles on this battlefield that you have to pick up. And the main thing is not to burn out
mhm,
because you will burn out if you're fighting everybody and everything and you're parenting the other parent on top of the kids. Like it's just too much. So you pick your battles carefully, figure out what those red lines are, and you go from there. But don't pick everything at first on at the same time.
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's a really, really important topic. Again, I'm not gonna get started because burnout is like
That's a whole thing.
it's a whole thing, right? Like
Yeah.
self-care for women, for moms, and again, there's so much research on how many moms are, especially moms, I'm going to say, because yes, dads are also burnt out and they're
Yeah.
also working and all of those things, but I would definitely say that the mental load that moms carry, Muslim moms, for, wanting to impart the deen onto the children, and just the amount of tabs that are constantly multiple tabs that are open in a woman's mind, the way that, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed a woman is so different to how a man works, and then the amount of stress that she puts on herself. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind, that burnout is a real problem, and you're burnt out when you feel like you just cannot take a pause.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
anyone here feels like I cannot sit down, I cannot, go take a day out, or even if you are taking a day out and you're constantly feeling restless and you're constantly feeling guilty, you are probably experienced burned out, and that's no way to continue. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
That's a
going to be
real
serious implications of that.
Yeah, that's a real thing. I want to ask you, like, just kind of around this topic. For you, like as a parent coach, when people come to you, because I know I have like some divorced couples, right? And there it's similar to your question, but there's like really no having a conversation with the spouse. There are issues in marriage, for example, that you just feel undermined. You do all this research, you do all this work, you do all this whatever, and then the spouse comes along and they just do what they know. It's like, how convenient is that? I'm trying really hard here to change things, and you're just, and genuinely they don't have the room to necessarily, not always do they have the room to like think about these things on top when you're saying open tabs. And then sometimes you just can't see eye to eye. You're not going to. It's not
Mm.
one of those. So let's say you're alone in this, in a sense. Do you think there's a point to continue down this path? And I have my answer. 20 years is, hindsight uh, is 2020, right? They say. But what would be the point from your perspective?
Yeah, so again, just to because I don't know where everyone's joining from, so I just want to give a little bit of context to the fact that yes, I'm a parent coach, but there's different, in the coaching world, we have a huge array of different kind of coaches coming from different lenses. And so the lens that I come from is of a respectful parenting lens, which
Mm,
is not gentle parenting. It's not
okay.
gentle parenting. It's not gentle parenting in the way that the social media has portrayed gentle parenting
Okay.
as right now.
Okay.
If I have to give a one-liner of what respectful parenting is, it is to treat your child with dignity and respect, just like you would any other person, just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them or put them into this world with dignity.
Mm,
Yet, while understanding that you are the authority figure, so you still need to discipline and hold boundaries for that child, but doing it with respect and kindness and compassion, like
mm,
the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did. So
mm,
that is the lens that I come from. Now, the reason why we're trying to do parenting that way, and that's what I teach my clients, and that's why they come to me, because they're trying to break us. Most of us weren't raised that way. Most
right.
of us, our parents were very well intentioned, but they didn't have the resources. A lot of them were in survival mode themselves. A lot of them were immigrants. And so they didn't have the resources. So they weren't raised that way. So we literally, this generation, if you are trying to parent your children in a different way, you are literally called a cycle breaker,
Mm,
which is a huge task. You're breaking the generational cycle of trauma and neglect and emotional neglect, which, again, our parents didn't mean to give us, but we did get that. We did get passed on those things.
mm,
So if you are trying to do that, firstly, recognize what your big why is. What is your motivation? Why are you trying to do that for your children? And having that why is really critical. Like your why should be independent of your husband, of independent of your children, even. It should be your answer that you're answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you have that why and that's so strong, and also again understanding why, when we create safety for our children, emotional, physical safety for our children, they are so much in a better space to build a stronger connection with you. And
mm,
to me personally, when you build a stronger connection with your children, you can impart the deen on them because then they're more willing to listen to you. And so ultimately, my goal is so that our parents can have a stronger connection with their children, so that when they teach them about the deen, when they teach them about the Quran and Sunnah, the children are more open to it. The amount of children who are now moving away from the deen is astounding. The amount of kids who are going towards atheism is astounding. And so one part of that is your relationship with your parents. It's not the only reason, but it's a huge part.
right.
And so to go answer to, what you had to, if your husband is not on the same page as you, research has shown that one safe adult in a child's life,
Yeah.
one safe person in your child's life, ideally a parent, is enough to make that difference in their growth and in their fostering of that, whatever values that they are going to grow up with. So even if you feel like sometimes you are going against the grain and you feel like you're alone and you feel like, what's the point of this? It's making a difference.
Yeah,
It's
that's
making
a really important point, and I think my lived experience is exactly what you said, and it's like sometimes we like grieve and have a lot of guilt about not doing it right in the beginning and whatever, but that process is more important than the outcome in the moment. That's the main thing.
the process is always
Yeah,
the most important thing.
yeah,
Like the outcome is never in our hands, right? So
yeah.
the only thing that we are going to be answerable for is, did we try our best? Did we do our, with the resources that we have? And subhanallah, I feel like the test that we have in this generation is that we have so many resources. Like, I feel like my parents can go to like I almost think like my parents can go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, we didn't have Google at that time, we didn't have ChatGPT, we didn't have all these Facebook groups and these like amazing, resources, but we cannot say that we have to be like, we had it literally at our fingertips. And so
Right.
we not
We
use them.
are drowning in information, but striving for wisdom. I love that, like that. That's where we're at because it's information age. Yes, it's at your fingertips, but that lived experience, that wisdom that comes with distinguishing and understanding values and when do you apply what, is, that's the trick.
That's a huge one. I
Yeah.
think a lot of us are consuming a lot of information, and like I'm trying to work on this myself because we all are addicted to doom scrolling and addicted to like the the screens. But it's just bringing that awareness that like we're not going to learn anything through 3-second videos or
Yeah.
like scrolling. So we just
I'm
have to be
snapping for
mindful of
you.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, if you have to give one tip to our moms here, who are walking away with, wherever they are in their relationship with their husbands or with just, with their partners, with the co-parent of their children,
Yeah.
and what's that one thing that they can apply like immediately, and that's a resource or something that they can use immediately, regardless of where they are in their.
Okay. So I'm going to try to keep this simple. I think it was kind of what I said before about the repair, but I'm going to kind of paint the picture a little bit better. A lot of times, like what we're trying to tackle is actually really complex. It's not super simple. There's a lot of elements, there's a lot of things that we need to overcome in order to get the parenting on the same page, in order to get it right. There's a dynamic behind that. There's all kinds of things that are happening. So boil it down to one habit. Boil it down to one habit. And the reason I say habit is because it is doing a small thing consistently creates drastic change without you having to take drastic measures. That's the whole point of building habits. You're creating a system. And so you pick one thing that you think is going to make a difference. I'll give you what has made the difference for me. And then, you focus on that. And you kind of have to be instinctive. I can't tell you what it is for you. But when it comes to communication with a spouse, for me, it's fight on purpose. At some point, review what's happened, have that argument, have that conversation, have that, back and forth. And then at the end of that conversation, ask him openly, be open about it, and ask yourself, if this happened again tomorrow, what would you do differently? And then you answer that question and he answers that question. And just having that simple, like buttoning up the fight, the argument with that bit is a form of repair. Don't leave your fights open-ended, undone, not buttoned up. You want to button them up a little bit. You can't fix them, but you can button them up a little bit. And then sometimes it's a matter of I kind of want to be inclusive for all kinds of people here because some of us are married to people who we think are more genuine than and more concerned with their children than they are their ego, right? Like we really think that if I just do XYZ, if I just set it up this way, if I just, and then we realize later on over the years, for whatever reason, this person is not necessarily going to change or whatever, right? So if you're in a situation like that, then this is a matter of trust. It's not a matter of communication. And so I think being able to recognize and also distinguishing the difference because it makes a difference. Like you can get into a fight with someone who is well-meaning, who at the end of the day cares more about, the kids than they do about their ego. And it can be ugly, but you'll bounce back from that. But you can have a minor scruff with someone who doesn't have those intentions, and it just creates a wedge that never gets fixed. So understanding like the difference between intentions is a big deal. So I just think having that, and I have a resource for, understanding trust in a kind of holistic way. We can talk about that a little bit later. I want to ask you the same question. What's one quick tip, one practical thing people can do and walk away from to deal with this?
So I did have a different one, but I'm gonna go on the back of what you said, is when
Okay.
you're having a conversation with your spouse, it's a coaching principle, it's a counseling and coaching principle. So it is that use I language instead of you language. And that's a
Mhm.
simple one. So whenever you're having a conversation, just kind of take a pause and just rather than waiting to hear the other person's response, just even listening to yourself. And you'd be surprised how difficult this is and how much we
Mhm.
don't actually do this,
Mhm.
because we're just so used to like anticipating what the other person's going to say, and then while they're talking we're actually thinking of our response, so we're not even thinking about what we had first said. So just
Tara, let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to give you a sentence and you're going to turn it into I language, okay?
okay.
Because I think people don't recognize how they do this. Okay, I got to think now. You guys can also type in the message. I got to think. I got to go back to like real life scenario. Okay. So, why'd you why'd you yell at the kids like that? That was so unacceptable.
Okay, so here's what I would do with that. Hey, I feel like we need to discuss how we are addressing the way our kids are doing certain things. So I was wondering if we can talk about how we approach them when they are
Blah blah.
watching the TV or when they're fighting or when they are whatever it is, fill in the blank.
Okay. You're so reactive.
But you're so reactive. Hey, it kind of catches me off guard when you speak in that way, which is I'm not just used to it. So I was wondering if you're able to say things after the kids sleep and we can talk about it maybe over a cup of chai or coffee and we can actually discuss it a little bit better.
Yeah. Okay. These are, yeah. It's, I feel I need, here's what I'd like to do, making a request instead of,
Yeah. Here's another one that we actually did this in my house because I
okay.
didn't even realize I was doing it so often. Hey, what are you doing on the phone again? Hey, are you texting? So again, just had to rephrase that and say, hey, I really need you to be here at dinner time. I'm a little overwhelmed with feeding 4 kids at the same time. Can I get some help? Can I get some help? Can you help me, but can I get some help?
Yeah.
And so a lot of us are not used to those terms because again, for so many moms that I speak to, they're like, I can't ask my husband for help. They should know that they need to help me. Girl.
Yeah, yeah. You start there, and then you learn. Like there's some people that there's learned helplessness, and then we get into this like
Let's not go there.
buzzwords.
Let's not go there.
buzzwords. But yeah, like if the intention is there, that should work. If the intention is not there, then you have it. That's a whole different thing.
That's
Yeah.
right. I want to see if anyone has any questions. I want
Yes.
to honor the women who are here so late at nighttime after a long day. So if you have any questions, for those who came in late, Meimuna is a relationship coach and a habit coach, and she works with Muslim families, Muslim couples. And I'm a parent coach. I work with Muslim families as well. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to jump off mute or put it on the chat. Like this is a casual conversation among sisters.
Yeah.
Um, while they're please just feel free to jump in, anyone, or type in your topic. But I did want to talk about the resource that you had mentioned.
Yes, called The Science of Trust. And basically, trust is 9 different dimensions. And this is a good way. I don't just give you the dimensions, I give you the habits that would build that trust because we can do it inadvertently. We can build it or break it inadvertently without us realizing. So I'm just going to post my website right here. It's Meimuna.com, my name.com. And it's like the first thing you're going to see. You sign up for it. It's a quick video, training, and you get a workbook with it. It's good stuff. And so I think even like things like we're fighting over housework, we're fighting over who carries the load. Like we don't always recognize how that is hitting a core need, trust need for us. So it might surprise you. And how about for you? Do you have any free guides available or that you want to share here?
I do. If anyone wants to, I have a guide on conflict to connection. It's a workbook. It's a self-paced, self-work workbook between because primarily I do work with married couples and spouses who are parenting. So this is for both the couples, but if it's, just you, it can work just individually as well. But it's designed for a couple to go through together, and it has like, questions and things where you can come up with your vision statement and value systems and those kind of things. So it's a workbook, and if you put in your email in the chat, I can inshallah shoot it through to you guys, inshallah.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Sumia sounds like she has a question. Feel free to unmute and ask.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for doing this little conference. There was a lot of good information there, so barakallahu feekum. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have 2 questions actually. So I mean, you guys can choose if like one of you wants to answer one or the other. I have a couple of teens at home. Alhamdulillah, they're good kids and everything. But like, I had like there's 2 challenges for me. Like one is how do you keep that boundary of like you're a parent, but you also want to be close to your kids and a friend to your kids, but you don't want them talking to you like they're talking to their teen friends, right? Like you don't want them to call you bro or disrespect you in any way or anything like that. So like, how do you keep that balance? Like, if you guys have any advice on that.
I'm gonna just give a funny story and then I'll
Okay.
pass it on. My son started calling me bro when he was at some point, and I started calling him girl. Did you hear that last time? Every time, because it's like micro habits. These are like micro habits. Don't get all flustered about it. Just, like I asked him several times, don't say that, don't say that, don't say that. But sometimes you turn it into a joke. Sometimes you find that little micro habit, what triggers it for them, because it's just a bad habit. And then, you don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. They just get these things from people. Anyway, go ahead.
So should I ask my second question or just
no? I think it would be better if are they kind of interlinked or are they 2 separate questions?
They're 2 separate questions.
Okay, I would think it's better just from my head because I'm like a one-track mind brain. Let's just answer this one question. I want to make sure you're satisfied with it, and then we can move on to the second question, inshallah. Do you have anything else to add to that, Meimuna, or do you want me to take?
I think like those things, like, is it a boundary because like I would have to like dig into this. Is it a boundary because it's just a bad habit? Is it a boundary, like depending on what it is that you're trying to figure out? But the bro, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.
Okay.
It's hard.
So here's what I would say to that, especially if you have teenagers. That's the age where their primary stage in that phase of life is they're figuring out themselves. They're
Yeah.
trying to figure out their own identity. And with that, they're exploring a lot of things. So if you remember being a teenager, you were pushing boundaries or in your own little ways, like we try to push through things just because we're trying to figure out like even if it doesn't feel good, it's like, I'm gonna just try to go there and just see if it feels good, but you won't know if it feels good or not until you try it. And
Mhm.
yes, it's very testing. It's an incredibly testing time for the teenager themselves because even they feel confused. Like it's not like they're having a lot of fun being in that body right now because it's a lot of hormonal changes.
Sure.
And with the kids nowadays, I don't know how I would have dealt growing up in an age of social media. So it is a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure. And so it's a lot of struggle for them, but it's also a lot of struggle for the parents. So I think firstly, just zooming out again and just recognizing that this is a difficult phase for both of you. And
Right.
when you recognize that something is difficult, you deal with it according to that. Like you don't try to take it like, go along with it. You actually deal with it as that it is a difficult phase. So again, I would go back to what Memuna had said earlier is just identifying, is this a boundary that's really strict for you? Is them
Mm.
saying bro really something that's going to harm your relationship? Because in this phase of your life as a parent, our primary goal is to maintain that relationship and that connection. This is a time where they can disconnect very easily. Research also shows this is a time when they get more attached to their friends and that
Right.
social pressure and that peer influence becomes stronger. So if you even have to relax a little bit of your boundaries, if as long as they're not overstepping on like hardcore hard red lines as Memuna had put them, um personally I would encourage if we were in a coaching session, I would say absolutely let them go, like relax them a little bit, because you will see that as they get into their early 20s and things like that, these things will change as they're
Mm.
identifying their own personalities. They will start like coming around and they'll start solidifying what their personality is. But what they won't even remember some of the incidents with you. What they will remember is that my
Mhm.
mom was there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's really critical. It's really critical that they remember having a good relationship. They remember that if I get in trouble, if I have a question, if my peer said something to me that's like not good and I'm feeling uncomfortable, can I always go to my mom and ask her? Even if I say, hey, bro, and I like, jump over her and I'm like annoying her a lot, and then, but I know I can talk to her, that's so critical. So again, if it's like a swear word, I would be like, no, hardcore, that's not happening in my household. But if it's something like, bro, again, I would just ask you, and again, that's a question that you have to answer. Can the boundary go a little bit, can it be like a little bit stretched out, or can it not? And that's for you to answer, inshallah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
even with those really hardcore boundaries at this age, when they're teenagers, they're going to test things out. And I hated that answer when I had teenagers because there's some, like, you have to really trust your instincts. Like I think there's sometimes like it's worth the fight. It's worth the clamping down. It's worth the saying like this is not acceptable in our house, whatever it is. And then there's other
Mhm.
kids that they're going to just rebel even more. So you
Yeah.
kind of want to don't whatever keeps the line of communication open, but without you having to bend over backward for them, meaning like you are who you are. Kids will experiment with all kinds of things, and haram, not haram, like they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And it's a scary time to just sit back with your kids and watch. And that's something, because I have a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old. Alhamdulillah, like in high school they were really testing all kinds of boundaries. And and what I didn't do was freak out on them. That was like the one thing we openly talked about them. We tell them, look, like you're responsible, you're answerable to Allah. Like obviously, you're your own person. And that there was a sense of freedom in that sense of like,
Mhm.
you have to answer that to your Rabb, like, and also don't do this in our house. If you're gonna go outside and do it, do whatever you're gonna do outside, but don't bring
Yeah.
it to the house. So like there were rules, and then there was a lot of conversation and openness about things that are not necessarily, you meet them where they are, right? Like
Mhm.
they're gonna do things that you don't approve of. So like you in your home, it's like swear words or whatever. I like that kind of stuff. I genuinely let that kind of stuff go. I didn't sweat any bullets about that, because it's just, if you're trying to tell them how to behave and you're so worried about their actions on the outside, you're not going to get the inner story. And so for me, it was really important to maintain that inner connection, that inner story. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Like, what is this like for you? What's your experience with this? Is this working for you? I'm worried about you. I tell them all those I statements. I did a lot. I'm genuinely worried, and I talk about how I feel. And it's a negotiation. And sometimes it takes a few years to kind of round out a little bit. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm gonna add to that is this is the age to start being okay. I mean, we would do this even early on, but this is the age where, as parents, as difficult as it is, like start being okay with being a little bit more vulnerable with your teenagers. So
Mhm.
that means saying things like, "Hey, and always thinking of them as good. Like, so even if they are acting bad, like their behavior is bad, always saying, "Hey, like." I know this is not like you at all. Like, I know you're usually not like this. You seem a little bit off the edge. What's going on? Like, I'm really concerned about you, you know?
Mm,
Even though they may not say anything like immediately, because teenagers don't always respond immediately,
right.
them knowing that, okay, my mom thinks that I'm a good person makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Jazakallah. That's
How about
yeah,
you?
that's
Does
very
that help?
precious.
Does that answer your question?
I hope that was
Yeah, I
helpful.
mean it does. Jazakumullah khair. So I mean, it
It's
is
a
like it
struggle,
is a really
girl.
hard balance because we're
Yeah,
trying to bounce back between like being their friend, but
mhm.
not the kind of friend that they can like disrespect or so it is really hard to be in the position of parenting that we are today, especially that they have the social media too, and they see all these posts about I sometimes
It's
like you
not just
open YouTube and you
social media. Yeah, it's all the
oh
internet.
my
Like
god,
they
all of
everything
it.
is at their fingertips, right?
And
Like
like, yeah, and everybody's calling parents narcissists and whatnot, and like
yeah, and
you're having
cutting
to
you
deal with
off,
that.
and yeah, yeah,
So they're trying to vilify the parents in a way that the kids will detach from them. And so I mean, I see that, but it is hard to fight. Like it's like a fight. It is like with the environment, not with the kids, of course,
right. That's really
but
what
like
it
with the
is. That's really
environment.
what it is.
SubhanAllah, because like the
Mhm.
shaitan is doing a good job, and we need to fight back as hard as
You
we
Absolutely.
just need to have some trust that you're modeling good behavior is going to
can.
go the distance. And I think one thing that's really helped me is I genuinely believe at some point it's not my responsibility anymore. Because as moms, we want to take on, we want to center ourselves when we're not part of that story anymore. Are you smothering or are you mothering? Like you have to kind of figure out like what those lines are. And backing off, but creating that communication is a huge part of it, right? Like you watch them flail and it's dangerous and it's risky, but usually they land on their feet. Not always, but usually they do, so inshallah.
100%.
Yeah.
May Allah guide them all. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I want to see if any other sisters have
Yeah,
any
anyone else
questions.
have comments, questions?
So I do have a second question, but I want to give the chance for someone else.
does anyone have any comments on that? I know
Yeah.
someone else might have older kids as well, and if something has worked for you, please jump in, inshallah.
Yes, we need all the advice we can get.
Go
We need
ahead,
to help
go
each
ahead.
other out.
Ask your second one and then we'll go around. We'll like come
Inshallah.
back around to anyone who has comments or
Inshallah.
questions. Yeah.
Inshallah. So one of the things that we do as moms, I believe in, we want to take over everything. Like we want to do the house chores, we want to do the cooking, we want to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect employee for those of us who work. And like you want to like volunteer and you want to like go to the gym or whatever and do like we want to do everything perfectly, right? And we forget that we need to take care of ourselves first.
Mm.
But in doing that, we need to delegate some of the tasks to other people in the house, right? So how do we delegate in a nice way without having to yell about people to like do chores when they expect you to do everything and like you're expecting them to help out? Like we want them to like at least like some people need to take over the dishes and the laundry and like something. Sometimes cooking from time to time, like every
I
like
am over here like, yes, I'm not a good part. I'll yell. So I'm gonna leave this one to Sarah. We're having a conversation about this.
so I
I'm
wanna have a
still
good word.
struggling with this with these adult kids. What is happening?
Please help.
I think so. So let me better understand the question first. So your question is that how do you delegate within the family members
Right.
when you want it to be more evenly distributed amongst the family?
Not evenly. I mean, it's never going to be evenly, but at least like them taking over some of the tasks, just helping out in some way without having to yell, without having to threaten, without having to like, I'll take this, I'll take that. Like,
Yeah,
I, I want to find like a better way to ask,
yeah.
or I mean, I don't know if you have like a schedule, like I don't know, like any advice on like a schedule or anything like that, because I don't have like any schedule or anything like that, and I do have to yell every day
Yeah,
about
yeah.
stuff, and I hate
So,
that.
so with older kids, with kids over the age of 10, 11, 12, like in the parenting world, we don't recommend. So with younger kids, we recommend a lot of reminders, like if you have like chores for the younger kids, like emptying the dishwasher or
Mhm.
putting the clothes in the laundry or things like that. There's a lot of reminders because like genuinely their brain, the way they're developing, it just doesn't have the capacity to remember. But with
Mhm.
older kids, they do need to, this comes into like the family culture, right? So again, like you are teaching them how to do house chores because that's part of your family culture. So, I mean, again, we can go deeper into it. We just don't have the time and the space right now. But if I was coaching you right now, I would probably go a little bit more into your beliefs around them helping out. Because you started off saying we want to be perfect moms, perfect wives, perfect employees. And as soon as I heard that, I said, I don't, I think that's one of the big things that we work on in parent coaching is that even with with the clients who I'm working with, I'm like, we're never going for 100%. We're never ever going for 100. Like there's no such thing as 100% as moms. At best, you're going for 70%. And on your busy and survival day, seasons in your lives, go for 5%, go for 2% of like what we're learning, So I think reframing that also helps. And then again, having the tool that we use for older kids is problem solving. So having, family meetings, sitting down with them and saying, giving them one thing. So again, if this is not something that they've been doing or they're used to like from an early age, just kind of saying like, hey, I, I really feel like we're all contributing members of this family. So again, we're one family and we all belong in this family and each of us needs to have a role. And I love serving you guys, but I also feel like it's unfair that I need to do everything. So I feel like we really need to everyone needs to do their own part. And so I was wondering, here's a list of things that needs to be done. Whatever it may be, like take out the trash on Thursdays or whatever. You can already have like a list. You can even brainstorm the list together and you can like remove yourself from it. Just remove yourself from the fact that like I do this all the time. Just be like, hey, what tasks do you see around the house that need to be done? And let them come up with it. Let them be part of the decision-making process right from the start. And you make it fun. The more you make it fun, the more they're learning. Like they're more like learning, but they're not realizing that they're learning. So you create a whiteboard, you do it. It's okay if they forget, but at least they're coming up with the problem solved themselves. And you ask them, hey, like, what do you think is fair for you to do? And what do you think is fair for you to do? And then what you do is you build up a contract. It could be a verbal contract. We recommend actually writing up a contract and saying, so Sara will do the dishes and load the dishes 3 times a night on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. And they'll say, no, but Sundays I have assignments and I have homework. I can't do that. Okay, can you do Monday? Yeah, I can do Monday. Okay, Monday. And you're going to do this. And for like you say, okay, I'm going to come back to this a week later. So the way we're teaching problem solving as a skill while we're doing it. So we don't expect to have this one conversation and them to learn. What we're teaching them is what problem solving looks like. And so once you get them contract, you actually sign it, they sign it, put it on top of the fridge, and then you don't say anything for the next 1 week. Whether they do it or not, you don't say anything. You might remind gently. You might even ask this when you're talking. You say, hey, sometimes I know you're really busy and you forget. Do you want me to gently remind you? And they say, yeah, can you remind me like one time? But don't nag me about it. Like, yeah, I can remind you one time. And you just remind them one time. And that's it. That's all you do. And as much as it's frustrating for you to remind them, like the dishes don't get done, you just let it be. And after 1 week, you have a meeting, just like you would in a corporate world, right? Like you just do a meeting, like you're the manager, they're your employee. You come back to them and you say, hey, like without any judgment, without any shame, say, hey, I noticed on Thursdays and Fridays you didn't do that, or what's going on? Like, how can I support you better? Oh, I need more reminders or whatever. Like you make it a process and it will take time. Just like we're teaching our toddlers how to walk, or we're teaching our kids how to like eat by themselves, we're teaching our teenagers and older kids how to problem solve and that they will be held accountable, but without the shame, without the, yelling, without them feeling bad about themselves, but they will be held accountable. And you just keep saying like, hey, I noticed you weren't doing that. Like, how can I support you? How can we do this better? And you'll notice after a couple of weeks, they'll start to take responsibility. And if they don't, like, you want to really like dig in and like, hey, what's going on? Like, that's not okay. Can we give you more reminders? Do you need to set a reminder on your own phone for it? Again, every time you're doing that, you're teaching them a skill.
Right.
That's the more critical part, that you're teaching them a skill, because they might go out and live off, for college, or they might go and work independently in a different city. So how are they going to deal with this? How are they going to deal with their marriages? Because so many couples don't do this, they don't have problem solving skills. So you're actually teaching them all these things. And I'm going to say this, it's going to be draining. It's hard. And so reminding yourself that as you're teaching them this,
Yeah, but yelling every day is draining. Getting frustrated every day is draining.
right, choosing your heart, right? Choosing your heart is like, but also every time I'm telling a parent this, I'm a mother this, I'm like, remember to fill your cup somewhere else. Like, don't expect them to be your reward system or their appreciation system. They're never going to do that. So remember to fill your cup somewhere else, so that you're in the mental capacity to actually remind them and do this accountability check-in and do all of this, because it's hard work.
Yeah, agreed.
Does that help?
Wow, this was amazing. This a lot of gems were packed into that from both of you sisters. Jazakumullah khair. Wallahi, this was
Oh, yeah.
amazing. This is very helpful. I love the idea of, them like giving them the chance to like write down like the list of chores and help come up with that. Cause I even thinking about that is debilitating for me. So like I just I love like all those ideas of like having the like a weekly family meeting and like just like talk about things and like how are things going? How did we do? Maybe adjust it after a week and I love that, I love that.
Yeah, and
Jazakumullah.
remember to break it down because, again, our prefrontal cortex, again, I'm gonna go into a little bit of science, but our
Mhm.
prefrontal cortex doesn't develop until the age of 25 and 27. And that's
Wow.
the part of our brain that is responsible for executive functioning, which is decision-making skills, consequences, all those things. So literally some kids, even if they're neurotypical, I mean, if they're ADHD or ADD, that's a whole different, ball game. But even if they're neurotypical with the social media and they're used to jumping so much with their brain, you might tell them, hey, load the dishwasher, and they might be like, what do I do? So if they need help, sometimes you might not know that they need helps to like subcategorize that. So like actually telling them, and I know this sounds so annoying, but like just even like breaking that down and saying, hey, the cups go on the top, and then you can put the cutlery, and then put the plates, and then the bowls go here, and just showing them a few times, just like you would if like, you were having a helper coming to your house, or
Mhm.
if you had an employee under you, you would do them, you would teach them these things. And a lot of the times we assume that they've seen it so many times that they would just know what to do. Because we
Mhm.
as when we were growing up, we just learned things and we had to step in to help
It
our
was sink
moms,
or
right?
swim and get yelled at if you don't do it right.
So we had to do that.
We were
We had
like,
to do that. So we're like, why can't you just figure it out?
why
You've
don't
seen
you
me do
know
that so
this?
many times. But they
Yeah,
just don't. They just don't. They're in a different world.
Wha-
yeah,
Uh,
that's
one
fair.
one comment that I wanted to say to that, and it's very surprising, because depending on how your kids learn, my 8-year-old, a couple of weeks ago, she was out of school, but I was going to work, and I literally wrote down, clean your room, but I put make your bed with sheets. You pick up all your hangers and clothes off the floor, literally step by step of everything that I wanted her to do that is clean to me. And I came home and I said, did she clean that room? And literally everything that I put on that list, because normally I say make your bed to her. My bed doesn't have to have sheets on it to be made. I just throw my blanket on there and I'm
Oh
good
my
to go.
gosh.
But she did that. I wasn't there with her or anything. I just wrote it down and said, do this before I leave. So understanding, like some kids learn better, like she said, by
Yeah.
showing them, hey, I want you to do this. And we have to actually teach them to clean up because
Yeah.
we, just did it by seeing our parents do it.
I
But
think
I
I
know
think
she,
sorry to
and
cut you off, Kendria. One point that I want to make here, which you said that was really important, like you don't have time in this day and age. A lot of us are running around, right? Like, so when you say slow down, have a meeting, take the time, take the, like the way that we've set up our whole, like this is not just an us problem. It's really on a much larger level, on a social level. We don't have time. And so this is a really good idea, Kendria, that to write things down, have a checklist, finding ways to make the time because these are things that our parents and our generations, they were taught from a very young age. They were
and
taught from a very young age.
consistency, because I am terrible
Yeah.
with and kids. If you tell them you gonna follow up every week and you do it for two
Yeah.
or 3 weeks and then you fall off,
Yeah.
it's gonna go, because that's what my problem is. My
Yeah.
oldest is 15 and my youngest is now 6 months, but I'm like in between that, the consistency. I feel like God, if I would have just been consistent, we would not still
Yeah.
be here every day.
Yes. It's that, and that's the trick is to pick the keystone habits, like the ones that are like not every habit is created equal. Figuring out which ones really make the difference. It's the same as like picking your red lines, right? Like figuring out the keystone habits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you guys for coming. I think this wraps it up. If you, I can also, with Sara, you said add your email onto here, and then you'll go ahead and send. Is that what you said, Sara, to everyone? Okay.
Yes.
I think that's a good idea. If you would like me to add you to that trust training, I'm happy to do that if you want to add your email here too. So I think that concludes everything. So thank you so much for coming. Sara, thank you for all of your wisdom.
Thank you for all your wisdom. I learned so much, and I'm gonna have to talk to you backstage to learn a little bit more about like the trust and the stories and all those. But I think I'd love to learn a little bit more about those. Maybe we can have another session, inshallah.
Yes,
I
nine
think this will
dimensions of
be,
trust. Yeah,
yeah,
it's good stuff.
yeah. But no, again, jazakallah khair to the ladies who showed up. We really, really appreciate everyone and for your input. Alhamdulillah.
Yes. Bye.
Jazakumullah khair.
Waiyakum.
Yeah, cool.
Have a good night, inshallah. Assalamu
Thank
alaikum.
you, you too. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair, Samia.